Thank you for being here. You are an immigrant who came to this country at a very young age, and you have long said that your story is emblematic of the American dream. But you're critical of the immigration process now, all these years later. So what do you think needs to change?
Yeah, I think it's a critical question for America. America's a country of immigrants. My parents came here in the late 70s. We did it the legal way, and we came here to live our American dream. I've been in Kansas for 40 years, and it's one of the honors of my lifetime to get American citizenship. So I think there's a legal path here, and we just have to make sure that we follow the rules. And I think coming up with mechanisms like amnesty, we got to have a clearer understanding of what our goals are and why we're prioritizing certain folks over others, because certainly there are other immigrant groups around the world that are seeking entry into the United States that are not being allowed an opportunity to come into the United States. And geographic convenience is not a moral argument for letting folks into the country.
Would you support some sort of amnesty program for people who are already here now?
Well, of course. I mean, I think we have to look at each individual situation, and we have to have a better understanding of why folks are coming here. But look at the folks in Afghanistan. I mean, we let some of those folks who fought, blood, sweat, tears, lost life and limb, and we didn't allow those folks to get amnesty status, and we let a number of those folks, unfortunately, left them in a perilous situation.
A number of Republican colleagues and candidates running for various offices in Kansas and Missouri have proposed rounding up illegal immigrants, they say, and trying to use some sort of law enforcement mechanism. Do you support anything like that?
Yeah, I guess what I would say is that we need to have a mechanism for accountability. And so I'm not sure if the rounding up is the right word that I would use, but certainly we need to be able to have an understanding of who's in the country, how long they've been here, and have a mechanism of understanding how that's impacting this country. I mean, just for example, there are economic repercussions for folks coming into the country. I've lost, some of my friends have lost kids, and we've lost members of our community to fentanyl overdose. And there's public health issues too. I'm a cancer doctor, and I can tell you, do we know the vaccination status of 11 million folks? And we've just gone through a pandemic that was devastating to the entire country and the world. And do we know what their vaccination status is? So there's a number of reasons why we need to have some kind of accountability and ability to track folks. And of course we want to let folks come and join our country. We are a country of immigrants. We are the melting pot.
Let's talk public health. Your opponent, Congresswoman Sharice Davids, supported the passage of the Inflation Reduction Act, which, among other things, capped insulin costs for Medicare recipients at $35 a month. It's a big point for her campaign. You do not necessarily support government regulating drug prices. Tell me about that.
Yeah, so again, I've spent my life trying to bring innovation to cancer patients. I've had a hand as part of many teams globally in improving cancer care around the world. And a lot of that has to do with supporting innovation, supporting research. By putting price caps on all drugs, I think we're going to curb innovation. Now, of course, there's loopholes. If something should be generic, then we should not have loopholes to extend patent life. But at the same time, there's other innovative mechanisms, for example, enabling clinical trials that will potentially help the healthcare ecosystem continue to have innovation so we can bring the cures of tomorrow and make them the realities of today.
Let's go deeper. It was first reported in the Kansas Reflector that your campaign had received, I think it was more than $400,000 from political interests aligned with pharmaceutical companies opposed to capping the prices of insulin. What would you say to voters about a potential conflict of interest?
Yeah, so the basic thing I'd tell you there is that was over a lifetime, my investments in the industry, and it's because I believe in healthcare and I believe in innovation, and my goodness, we've certainly made tremendous progress over the many decades. So the short answer there is we should never have insider trading. We should never have a situation where people are picking winners and losers based on personal gain, and of course I'm opposed to that. But it's 6 degrees of separation. I mean, I don't think I have anything to do with other folks who may have a different position on certain issues than I do.
Let's talk about abortion, an important issue, of course, this year in Missouri we're seeing that, but voters in Kansas a couple of years ago overwhelmingly protected abortion rights. You've been hit pretty hard in campaign ads as supporting the dismantling of Roe v. Wade, and I just wanted to give you a chance to explain your stance on abortion here.
Yeah, thank you. Again, I'm going to start as a doc. We always start with a place of empathy. That's what medicine is, and we have to make sure that we're protecting our patients. So that's the first place that I would start. And then from there, what I would say is I 100% believe in exceptions, and it's exactly what you said. I mean, I trust the voters of this state, the voters in this district, to make the right decisions, and they've made their wishes clear. And so as far as I'm concerned, I would not dismantle what has already been laid out by the voters. And personally, I think because of the Supreme Court decision, this is a states' rights issue, and I certainly wouldn't support a national ban.
You mentioned exceptions. Which exceptions are you talking about?
So rape, incest, life of the mother,
okay.
Yes.
All right. The makeup of the 3rd District has changed in recent years to include more rural parts of the district. Has that changed how you're campaigning, and does it change the priorities of the 3rd District, do you think?
So personally, I think no. From my perspective, I think this is about building coalitions, bringing people together. And so what I'm doing is expanding the Republican tent. And a good example is immigrant communities. Certainly I've made a special effort to ensure immigrant communities in this district are getting a voice. And I'm proud of what we're able to do there. And I think we made tremendous progress.
When there's vitriol coming mostly from the conservative side or the far-right Republican wing against immigrants in this country, how do you walk that line as an immigrant yourself and a political candidate for the Republican Party?
Yeah, the short answer is simple. I think the idea is there's a distinction between legal immigration and having immigration policy that's broken. And my personal opinion is that I'm not supportive, as a legal immigrant, as a recent immigrant, of immigration policy that's broken or encouraging illegal behaviors. And so, but I am very much supportive of course, bringing as many persons of foreign descent into this country as possible. That's what this country is all about.
When you see, though, even people at the top of the ticket calling immigrants rapists or murderers, how does that affect you, and how does that affect the people you're talking to along the campaign trail? Yeah,
the short answer there is that, look, there's bad cops, there's bad teachers, there's bad doctors, there are bad folks across this country. When I talk about bringing people together, I don't think that finding common ground on, for example, say somebody who's here illegally or under amnesty status that assaults a police officer. Should those people be sent back to wherever they came from? The answer is 100% yes. If we can't agree on that common ground, what are we going to agree on?
More so the overgeneralization, though, I would say.
Again, that overgeneralization, I think the key there is we want to avoid overgeneralization, right? Just like, there may be bad doctors, but we don't want to say all doctors are bad. And so are there bad apples in every kind of group? Sure. But we shouldn't go and label every single person as a bad person, whatever group that they represent.
I want to talk about the economy real quick. Despite cooling inflation, prices for groceries, as we all know, are slow to drop right now. Gas prices are ticking down, thankfully, but at the grocery store, it's still very high. If elected congressman, what would you do to help lower these prices?
Look, I'm an alum of Harvard Business School. I've run a small business. I've been involved in big business. All I can tell you is some of the things that we're talking about are bad economic policy. A person that's a first-year college student would understand that you can't print your way to prosperity without causing inflation. So we have to do a better job of understanding what we're going to prioritize, how we're spending our money, and be good stewards of taxpayer dollars. And that's what we're talking about. That is the first core principle. Any economist in the world who disagrees, they should give up their Nobel Prize. I mean, at the end of the day, we can't print our way into a situation that's going to drive inflation. And so those are simple things, principles that we have to take to DC.
Short term, any relief that you could try to provide for consumers?
Yeah, again, what I would tell you is that we got to look at fiscal policy where we look at fraud, waste, and abuse. Every department in the government should be under scrutiny. And again, this is simple. This is what we do in our kitchen tables. This is what every business in our community has to do. And this is absolutely what both the state and the federal government should be held accountable for.
Dr. Prashanth Reddy, thank you for your time.
Thank you.